Now for the main event. Our speaker today, the other part, I don't know if I can say half, the other member in this dynamic team of Fonnie and Ron, of course, is Ron Frost. And he has been board president down at the Cape Coral Center for Spiritual Living. He is an author. He wrote Getting Unstuck, and you've heard about that from Randy. Those are for sale. They're out in by our lending library, so make sure you stop over and pick up one of those. Oh yeah, and pay for it. He also, because that money is all being donated back to your center, so just an added benefit. Ron has been a life and business coach. He also speaks, of course. On Mother's Day, he spoke down at the Sarasota Center, the Sarasota Unity Church, and so we have him here for Father's Day. That just seems like a very typical thing to do. We love it. Can't wait to hear what he has to say. He also is a talented speaker. He's the president of a Toastmasters group, Southwestern Florida Speakers Bureau. Please, come on up here.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful. You feel to me like all family. And truly speaking, I'm not a reverend, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I think this is going to go all well. And happy Father's Day. How many people are fathers out there? Show of hands. Put your hands together for. Also, we're fathers, so you had to do the fatherly role because maybe you were the single mom in the family or a stepdad. So we honor the fathers, and we know how important that is. I was blessed with a beautiful, beautiful dad, and so to have a moment like today to bring forth an understanding of what fathers mean in our life. So, and raise your hand if you actually have a father. That should be everybody in this room. We always want to include everybody. The importance of the topic of Lead with Love, that Reverend Lane asked me to come up with a topic for Father's Day. And I said, Lead with Love I think is beautiful. Because on Mother's Day I was invited to speak at the Center for Spiritual Living in Sarasota. And we were talking about the power of love. And mothers are very compassionate. And to my father was more of a leader. He was that inspiration in my life. He was also the one that if I got in trouble, I had to talk to my dad. So what I realized is when we talk about leading with love, I look at three basically fundamental principles. One is being anchored in the teaching that we have here, understanding the law of the universe, understanding the law of cause and effect, and how we can use that. Working with this material, and then working on what we call our self-love, because we can only love another to the degree that we have raised that vibration. We can only become worthy to the degree that we are allowing and accepting that by seeing the divinity within ourselves. And with that, we can put those two together and we can actually lead with love. Lead with love, transform not only our lives but the lives of the people around us, but we can actually be the beacon in the world that can spread that light. Because I believe that if enough people come together, individually and collectively, with an open heart of love, and begin to see the world the way they wish they want it to be, then we can create a new day, a new way, a new heaven on earth. True? We may witness sometimes a little bit of division out there, right? We may see people like unfriending your best friend on Facebook because they have political differences. But when we fundamentally realize the truth is, it's not who's in the White House, it's what's in our house. And that's the only place that we can be mindful of. And we can raise our vibration to love, to recognizing divinity within, and we understand these principles that have been taught to us, that we are the creator of our universe, we're the creator of our world, we have this power. This is like Ernest Holmes, it's greater power, and we can use it. And as we raise our vibration, seeing the love within ourselves, we can actually apply this into not only our world, but into the greater world. Because we're all connected to this divine matrix of the universe. So today, I want to be able to share a little bit of a story about my dad and how I learned a lot. Have we all learned a lot from our fathers?
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned a tremendous amount from my dad. My dad was kind of that beacon of light in my life. He always said things. He probably taught my older brother, my younger sister, different things, but to me, what he taught me was, if you believe you can do it, you can do it. Isn't that similar to what we teach here? Mm-hmm. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. So he had that can do it thing for me. And he believed me. I didn't know what the do it was half the time. I knew it wasn't, when I crashed the truck, or when I capsized the boat, or broke the antique clock. Those are the things that I wasn't supposed to do. But then I had my mom, I can go for compassion for those guys. But it was my dad had that ability. I mean, my dad could fix anything. He had to, because I broke everything. And the truth is that I received that inspiration, that push, because he basically led me to believe that. The biggest lesson that I learned, and all three of us kids, my family learned, was basically he set me down and he said, you can believe whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. You can believe whatever you want. Especially when it comes to religion. Imagine that. My mom was Catholic, my dad was Protestant. We grew up in Bloomfield, Connecticut, was predominantly Jewish. So for me, at an early age, 5 years old, I had to figure out what's the difference between why we eat donuts and everybody else is eating bagels. But for my father, he said when he realized the conflict, there was conflict in our family. Not between my mom and my dad, but it was in the grandparents. They were very fundamental in their beliefs, and it was difficult. It was very difficult, especially on my mom. And when they got married, that was called a mixed marriage back then. Imagine that. That was called a mixed marriage, a Protestant and a Catholic getting married. And so for me, it was like, just be good. Make good decisions, follow whatever religion you want, whatever belief you want, religion or no religion, it doesn't really matter. The inside of you knows the truth. So this was perfect to open my door for spirituality. And later, when I would meet the woman of my dreams, and Indonesia, the other side of the world, again, different religions. And so the compassion and understanding both my mom and my dad had. And actually, the truth was they absolutely loved Fani. They loved Fani, they loved my in-laws. There's just the bridging together of the two cultures halfway around the world. And when Fani discovered her gift of music, my dad said, wherever she's singing, I want to go through. Wherever she's singing, I want to go hear her sing. And when it was time when she was singing at the Center for Spiritual Living, that was where she got her start, Center for Spiritual Living, Cape Coral. And I remember my mom going, we're going to your church. Like, what is that church in Cape Coral? Center for Spiritual Living. Center for what? Spiritual Living. What denomination is that? You always say, oh, okay, Mom, I don't really know. Like Dad said, it's good. Does she sing hymns? Hymns, hers. There's boys and girls in this band. So anyways, they came, and it was a joy to see my parents sitting in the audience. And what was most profound was the very first day, it was Reverend Emil. I don't know if anybody listens to Reverend Emil Go, but amazing, amazing speaker. And my dad walked out and he says, I like this message. something rang true for him. He said, I like this message. We create our own reality. There's a divine presence in the universe, and we can use it. This is like a little light bulb that went off for my dad. And so, as he, we're all on a part of our journey, no matter what age we are, whether we're the father, the son, the mother, the daughter, who we are, we're all awakening through life through different ways. Even when Spirit says, go see your daughter-in-law sing, I believe truly he was there to receive a message. And you see, the bigger reason why was several years earlier, my dad had been diagnosed with CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It's actually the same thing Wayne Dyer had. So when you have CLL, you get more CSL. That's the only remedy to it, right? And so as my father actually started hearing this personal empowerment message, he and I became kind of like students and practitioners of this process. And we took it home and we used it, because what had happened was he had gotten a diagnosis or prognosis of being able, to probably only live 2 years with this condition. He lived 14 years. And actually in those 2 years, there was a moment where, it was not only the anchoring of hearing from a doctor that you believe is, where you put all this trust in your doctor. How do they know? And so he, of course, he got the flu that year. Everything went, they put him on heavy dose of chemo. And he got run down. And it was one of those moments where mom's like, I think this is it. You guys, the boy, if you and your brother and your sister spend more time with your dad, I don't know. And we all thought that. But going through this teaching brought in a new sense of understanding that we have this power that we can use and we can apply. And so he came back not only to hear Fonnie sing, but this was something that we started sharing our libraries. At the time, I think he was reading Bruce Lipton, I was reading Wayne Dyer, and we just basically, we started juicing together. We started like coaching each, I needed to get healthier, and I figured if I'm doing this with my dad, and he was into Chinese herbals and meditation, everything that he could do to help change his condition. And doctors were amazed. When they did this blood work, they're like, what are you doing? And he's creating this transformation. He was at a point in his life where he was accepting death at an earlier point when he had more life to live within. And everything changed. His energy came back. He wrote a children's book. This has been on the back burner. So he's the author that's inspired me is because my dad. He wrote a children's book. He was an aeronautical engineer, and suddenly he decides, he goes, I think I got a better design for a jet engine that can save fuel. And he built a model, he had blueprints, he designed, and actually he went to Pratt & Whitney Aircraft and actually sat down, talked with him, and showed him this idea, and gave him this idea. This is all during this extra 14 years of life. See, I think when purpose is thriving through us, life is going to say yes to it. And not only that, he was out playing golf. This is like one of his favorite sports. And when you're sickly, you really don't want to move. And he's like out there, his buddies are saying, let's go out like 2 times a week, going out and playing golf. So my mom's amazed, and everybody's happy, and everything is flowing absolutely beautifully. But I believe it's a lot from what we learn in the empowerment, what's taught here. And so things unfolded for the better. He would come and visit me when they were snowbirds living in New Hampshire and Fort Myers. And Fonnie and I owned a sign and graphics business in Cape Coral, Florida. And he would come over once a week, we'd sit down for lunch, and we'd talk. And conversations would range from every subject imaginable about life. But one of the things he brought up was, I'm so glad that I told you to believe what you want. your brother, your sister, I'm so glad, because from, where I was at that time, everything I went through with the two different beliefs, and, from his perspective, he was like, well, if there's anything that's a religion, it's love. We have all these, I don't know how many of them there are, and sometimes they're the belief systems and the labels that we wear to separate us from the greater oneness of humanity. And if you put all humans across the world, regardless of what label they wore, what religion, what culture, what race, it doesn't matter. They would all want the same things. They would all want love. They wouldn't want to fight. They wouldn't want to go to war. So in seeing this awakened person in his later years of life, to me was, I think, how I felt, too. And as my father shared this with me, I felt like, here's something that, if I could write another book, this would be the subject I want to write about. Is how can we be more loving? How can we spread more love? How can we can transport the world? Because as Ernest Holmes speaks about, wouldn't it be wonderful one day when a group of people come to the planet for something and against nothing? Love is against nothing. Love is accepted. And so I believe if enough of us, I think we are the ones. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Because if enough of us come together with an open heart of love and see the world the way we wish we wanted to be, more peace, more love, more joy, then we can create heaven on earth. Lynn McTaggart, I don't know if anybody was aware of the consciousness experiment or the peace experiment. I've heard the name Lynn McTaggart. You can Google her. Well, anyways, they decided to take this principle and use it for various experiments. I mean, that's really what life is, right? An experiment. When life gives us a challenge, we use this and we see what's called a demonstration. We see that it works. And so what she decided to do, they first started working with plants and seeds and bringing different practitioners in and praying and meditating and sending love and watching plants grow faster with the ones that were getting love, and then the ones that were getting no love were, just not doing that well. Anyways, they decided to take this to certain areas of the world, and they got together a lot of practitioners. They actually chose a city that was just north of Sri Lanka called Lani. I don't know if you've heard this story, but it was in the early 2000s, 2002 I think it was. And so Lynn brought together, she had gotten together with people like Deepak Chopra and their followers, and they decided to put out a message to bring forth prayer, meditation, and love to this area, because there had been a 25-year war. A 25-year war, a battle that had been going on. People every day were dying. And as this started to happen, they noticed some things. Now the war was still going on, but there were less traffic accidents. There were less people being brought to the hospital. There were less deaths. And in 8 days into this activity, there was a critical moment of peace talks that were beginning, and that would cause the war to later end. Amazing. Consciousness experiment. We could do this. So with my father, as I saw this, awaken with him, it was, when he finally got to his 14 years, finally when we got to the point where I got that call, he's up in New Hampshire with my mom, and it's like the fall, it's getting close to winter, but he's been seeing doctors up there, and finally you get this message from your mom the second time around, son, this is time. Again, time had gone by, 14 years, amazing. It's like, son, this is time. And Fanny remembers this. I was actually, she's like, if you can get here, tomorrow morning, the first flight. And I'm like, that bad, really? So I actually, bought a plane ticket one way, $90. Wasn't sure how I was going to get back. $90. I was amazed, like to Lebanon, New Hampshire, this little tiny airport. Look, I'm not sure how I'm going to get there from Fort Myers, but one-way ticket. And I flew the very next morning. And of course, I had to go through Logan on a regular size aircraft. And then I had one of these tiny little crop duster type planes where I'm going from Logan over to Lebanon, New Hampshire. And I think it could seat probably like 10 or 12, but with the pilot and me and a couple other people, there was really only 4 of us on this flight. And above the plane, I said, is this thick sticker that said, "The Love Plane." And I'm like, really? It's like the Love Boat, right? But it's like, this is another message from the divine. And as I landed, my sister picked me up, and I came into the hospital room, and there's my dad sitting up telling jokes and just teasing the nurses and having a good old time. And my mom's sitting next to him, like, I'm sorry. Really, the way you looked yesterday, it was just this was definitely why I brought you up here. And then within a very short period of time, my dad said to me, he said, "Can you help me and your mom get to Fort Myers? Drive the car. Could you drive the car? Maybe we could fly us down there. I don't want to die up here." And my dad, who was the one that said, "You can do it," I was like the same type of person to my dad. Like, "Dad, come on in." No. It's been a good life. I loved every part of it. I'm grateful. I love what you, your brother, your sister have done. Very proud. The winter's setting in. And he was pretty firm with that. The winter's setting in. If you could drive the car, and your mother and I can fly. So I took out my cell phone, and I sat on the bed, and I booked the 2 tickets for them. And here's my dad saying, "You did that from this little thing?" It's just like, what's going into this? What's coming out of this? Where's the signal? What's it? And it's just kind of like the faith that we have in the law, right? It's like, not necessarily understanding electricity. We just know we flip the switch, the light goes on. And that's the conviction of the principle that we live in. That's not necessarily knowing what goes in and what goes out. We're just so adapted to technology nowadays. We just buy plane tickets and voila. And my dad was absolutely fascinated. He woke up and saw this for the very first time. And he's like, "Well, you gotta get your mom one of those." So I got plane tickets, and it was a 2-day journey. So my sister was to drive them, and they were to fly the next day, and I was immediately to take the car and went back to the house and did as many things as I could and hit the road. A 2-day journey, and it was all these stops. Refueling, getting something to eat, going to the rest stop, finding a hotel in the Carolinas, waking up at 4:30 in the morning because you feel like I just gotta go. It's like Spirit is like telling you. And so as I get down to Fort Myers, the whole plan was they were going to fly in at a certain time, and I can't remember, but the flight was delayed. I had no idea the flight was delayed. And so instead of getting off the exit for their house, I'm like, I feel like, kind of curious, I feel like driving by the airport. And just as I drive by, they're pushing my dad out in a wheelchair. And our eyes kind of meet as I'm just pulling up. And I roll down the window and I'm like, "Hey buddy, you want to ride?" And we were amazed, because when you are working with the faith and working with what we call the love of the universe, and you letting that lead the way, synchronicities just happen. I mean, I don't understand them, but they just happen. You're just going to go with it. You just kind of feel grateful, because isn't it the coolest thing? 2 days of a journey, and here we are. And so my dad did make his transition. It was a person that was, I believe, at peace with life. I learned a lot from him, so did my siblings. But here's the most amazing thing, is after he made his transition, not 1, but 2 cell phones in our family got these the weirdest text messages. They were beautiful words, half sentences. Fonny's was one of them. My youngest daughter, Ashley, she comes to me and goes, Dad, what is this? Both phone numbers. I did my research, they were not even assigned. One was Metro PCS, the other one was a T-Mobile line. Neither of those lines, when I called the phone companies, because nobody would pick them up. When I called the phone companies, they're not assigned. They're like, no, they've been a number for somebody, but they're not assigned at this moment. You couldn't have gotten a text from those numbers. And as I scrolled down to the bottom of my daughter's was the longest. And it was a very beautiful message. And I just scroll all the way down. And it says, I have come to know that love is my religion. Amazing. Could this be Dad? I don't know. But there's a lot of mysteries in life. But the one thing that we know for certain, that we were taught here, the principle of that there is a divine within the universe, that divine is within us, not separate from it. And that we can use this. And we can apply that law of cause and effect, not in pushing against, but Bernard Soames says, people that are for something. Not against, but for something. And when we work on ourselves, and that's our own sense of worthiness, to be able to love ourselves, to be able to accept the love that is within, to recognize it. And then we can take and use that to create the love, the manifestation in our life, in the world itself. Recognizing that divinity within all things, I believe, is what we are truly at. That's the next step of humanity, and I believe we are the ones to bring that forward. It's like the story when you have the father and the daughter's trying to scribble with a crayon. Have you heard this one? And the daughter's just scribbling away, and the dad comes over and it's like, gee, honey, what are you drawing? And she's just working away. I'm drawing a picture of God. And the father's like, God? How do you know what God looks like? Nobody knows what God looks like. Let's go there. They will when I'm done. And the truth is the divine is within the girl. The divine is within the father that asked the question. The divine's within the picture. The divine's within everything. And when we raise our vibration and we begin just to see this naturally, we're not seeing the division. It doesn't matter what's on TV. It doesn't matter what's going on. We are mindful of being able to recognize the love and the divinity within it all because we've accepted that within ourselves. True? So it's a matter of knowing. It's a matter of understanding and utilizing the principles that we're taught. We're awakened to know that. We realize the divinity that was in us to be able to receive the greater good and allow that love to lead the way. Because, as Ernest Holmes says, people show up for something, not against something. You're creating transformation on this planet. Enough people show up individually and collectively, begin to see the world the way they wish they want it to be, and we create that new day, that new way, that new heaven and earth.